What you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh. Footcandle Films. Film reviews and discussion from two guys who really like movies. This episode is brought to you by the Footcandle Film Society. Do you enjoy seeing interesting movies that you may not see anywhere else? Taking part in discussions about those films and live in Western North Carolina? Then you need to come be a part of the Footcandle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello and welcome to Footcandle Films. I am your co-host, Alan Jackson. With me, other co-host.
Hello, I'm Chris Frye.
Yes, and we're both with the Footcandle Film Society and now with Footcandle Films as a podcast. Chris, how you doing today?
Doing good.
Good.
Doing good.
I hope you're wide awake because we got a fun show today. I've got we've got some fun stuff we're going to talk about. So,
excellent.
And some very deep conversations to get into as well as we go into our featured review. The featured review for today is going to be The Tree of Life, and we'll follow that up with some news, and then we'll talk about our recommendations for films, kind of following that same format we've been doing the last couple episodes as well. So we're here at our third episode. I think doing pretty well with this thing so far, and getting some good feedback. So we appreciate all the listeners and everybody who has some nice things to say about what we're doing. So let's go ahead and get started. We're talking about our film review, our first part of the show, and it is The Tree of Life by Terrence Malick.
There are two ways through life. The way of nature and the way of grace. You have to choose which one you'll follow.
We're alligator.
You'll be grown before that tree is tall.
So, Chris, The Tree of Life. Let me give a little background last night, because, of course, we just screened this last night at our Film Society. Right. So it's fresh on our brains. But I do have to relay a story. I shared this last night as well. But to me, this really helps set the tone for what this conversation is going to be like. I'm sitting in the back of this theater, the beautiful downtown Hickory, Carolina theater. Back of the theater during this film. It's a 2-hour and 20-minute film. You need to go ahead and get that on the record. It's a long film.
Sure.
We had a packed house. We had a very, very good crowd, probably 240, 250, somewhere in there showing up for this film. As I'm in the back of the theater, the credits are rolling and people are starting to file out, some of them leaving during the credits, and a mother and a child walk out. And of course I see this, a child, probably 11, 12-year-old child.
Wow.
Yeah, which I kind of said the same thing in my own head. Wow, that they were here for this film. And as the kid walked by, he wasn't saying a word. The only noise he made as he passed by me was this loud exhale, like, ugh. And to me, that is where I want to toss it over to you. If you could talk to this 12-year-old kid and understand where he was coming from with this, was his exhale warranted at this point, or do you want to kind of tell him, hey kid, just wait 20 years and you can really appreciate this film? Where do you stand on this? Well, was it the loud exhale at the end, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just got through that? Or is it, you know what, kid, in about 20 years and you mature, you're really going to appreciate this film?
It's both. I mean, for a 12-year-old to sit through that, yeah, he deserves to be able to go,
Mm-hmm.
But I think he's really going to thank his mom. And, another 10 years or so, when he realizes that, hey, I saw The Tree of Life in the theater. It was very experimental. It was a monumental film. It was a big deal. And, yeah, he'll appreciate it later. But the fact that he got to see it, kind of cool. But, yeah, is a 12-year-old going to appreciate that? No way. But, kudos to the mom for taking him in,
Well, let me give it just a little quick plot synopsis for what there is of plot. Sure. And then I want to hear your thoughts on it, and I'll share mine as well. This is Terrence Malick's film. This is, Terrence Malick is not a terribly prolific director. He's made maybe 6 or 7 films.
Something like that.
And they're fairly spaced out film-wise. He doesn't knock out a film every 1 or 2 years like a lot of directors do. Badlands, Days of Heaven,
right.
The New World, some Thin Red Line, and some of his films that you may recognize. This is a film that covers a family, I guess is the best way to describe it. It centers around a family, although it's a much broader movie than just about this family.
Right.
Father, mother, their 3 sons, and we're basically following the oldest son as both modern day and his memories, recollection back to his youth. That's the simplest way to describe this film.
Yeah.
But it's obviously a lot deeper than that. There's a lot having to do with the birth of the universe. There has a lot to do with the evolution of the universe. There has a lot to do with relationships and people and families and connectivity of life.
It's just shots of the ocean.
Yeah, a lot of shots of the ocean. It's a very broad movie. Sure. And it's also very impressionistic in that it's much more almost like watching an art gallery exhibit, a moving art gallery, than it is necessarily watching a traditional film. So that's a summary. What did you take away? Did you think it worked?
It's one of those films for me that it worked. I liked it, but as I watched it last night, and here I am 12 hours later, and it's just getting better, even though I haven't seen it again. But it's
just reliving it in your head.
Just think. The more I think about it, the more I like it.
Wow.
But it's challenging. It is a challenging film. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's told non-linearly, and okay, that can be confusing. But then add in a totally, I guess you could say, non sequitur side plot. But in a way, it does kind of the whole creation of the universe thing.
Yeah.
You get all this crazy footage that looks like it was taken from 2001. But it does have to do with the movie, but yet it doesn't. It's this whole separate thing. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of confusing. But that said, and that's why you need time to digest it. And why I've had a little bit of time to digest it. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. And it is a film. It's not a movie. It's
True.
It's not for everyone. So I would say it's a cinema lover's film. There's the cinematography is great. The acting is good, and just the style of the movie. There's a lot of style there, and I could see how people would say it's pompous and indulgent, and they thought it was they could think it was boring, and I can't really debate that because I could see how you gotta stick with it.
You bring out from the film what you take into it. I think in a way also. I think if you're not in the mood or geared towards a film like this, it's not going to work for you.
No.
I think if you go in with a certain mindset and you are within a certain frame of mind during the film, it works for you. So it is a very subjective movie. And that's why I even mentioned at the end of the film last night, having our discussion, this isn't a movie you can say, is it a good or a bad movie? I don't think. I don't think it labels itself that cleanly. There was much of the film I loved. There was a lot of the film I liked. There was a little bit of the film I hated. I mean, it's just so. If somebody asked me
what you hated,
if it was somebody asked me good or bad, I'm like, well, no, it was good, but I have to qualify that. I mean, you have to go in with a certain frame of mind on this. My experience watching this film, the first 15 minutes or so are very disjointed. They're very quick images, a lot of non-continuous scenes, and just you have a hard time trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And that was my problem, is I was spending too much time trying to figure out what's happening.
Sure.
And I realized about 10, 15 minutes in, okay, just shut the brain off for a little bit as far as that part of the brain that wants to figure this out.
Sure.
And just let it seep in. And I think once I came to that point, and it was about, actually for me, it was the whole universe creation 15, 20-minute sequence that really got me involved. Actually,
interesting.
I probably would have almost got into it quicker if that had been the first thing I saw. The whole first 10 minutes, I thought were a little overindulgent. I thought it was almost a little too artistic for the art's sake. Just to say that I'm being artistic, I'm going to show a bunch of random shots and I'm going to cut a lot of things together.
They're
and I'm
all
going to make
nonlinear.
it exactly.
Yeah.
It almost was too much. But then once it actually settled into a flow, after the whole universe creation sequence, to me it worked. It worked extremely well. And just so, I mean, people listening to this and when they hear us say the universe creation scene, let's explain what that means, because I think people could be interpreting that many different ways.
Right.
There is a good 15-minute portion of the film, would you say? That's a silent film that is basically you're watching shots of what an interpretation would be of the universe being created.
Correct.
From the cosmos
Correct.
Then you get down to an actual planetary Earth-side surface and the creation of with lava and mountains and the water and everything else. And then finally you start to see organisms
Right.
develop. It was fascinating to watch. I mean, if you go into it just saying I'm watching a very interesting piece of art that is evolving before me, it's fascinating to watch. Douglas Trumbull was one of the visual effects consultants on the film, of course, from 2001,
Right.
from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I definitely saw his touch on that. It was a very, it was not over computerized. It was not over CGI. This was real stuff you were watching. Seemed very natural effects you were watching. And then once we got past that sequence, it really started a little more of a linear fashion with the kids and the family and understand what's going on with them and learning the dynamics of this family and how it's speaking to much larger tones. So the film really worked for me. I'm with you. I enjoy it more the more I reflect back on it. And there again, if I could have let myself go a little bit more in that first 10, 15 minutes, and if we could have done away with the CGI dinosaur, I think the film would have worked a lot more. There is a sequence in that universe creation montage where we do see dinosaurs, and there's CGI dinosaurs, which I never would have thought we would have seen a CGI dinosaur in a Terrence Malick film.
Right.
But there we did it. We got it. It was a little out of place. It was didn't quite follow the rest of the flow for me. That was my misgivings with the film. What about you? Anything that bothered you, didn't work for you?
I mean, yeah.
You're struggling to come up with an answer here, I can tell.
The creation stuff, I mean, it worked, but I guess if I were to say what was self-indulgent or whatever, I thought that was the use of that. And the longest part is the 20 minutes kind of towards the beginning, but they do have little flashes throughout the movie, and there's like some at the end and stuff. And I felt like if it would have just been at the beginning and then kind of not returned to it and just kind of used that as a jumping off point, maybe it would have worked. But it was almost like that could have been its own separate little nature documentary movie, but it is intertwined and stuff. I don't know.
I disagree with you on that because I feel like, in a way, and somebody in our conversation, I think last night summed it up really well. It helps set the mindset that, you know what, I'm going to tell you a story about a family, and it is one speck, one little microbe in this whole universe that they're dealing with, but they're a part of a much, much, much bigger fabric here. And I need to get that fabric idea across to you before I tell you any more about this family. That's how I took away from it. I thought it was important. My thing is I would almost rather have seen that first, and then instead of the overly broken up, overly fragmented opening that we got for the first 10, 15 minutes or so.
Right. And then, I see the importance of it. I guess if it would have just been at the beginning, like you're saying, and then you follow the rest of the movie, even if the rest of the movie is nonlinear, that would have been fine for me. But I felt like maybe it was a little self-indulgent. Okay. But I mean, I still thought it was really well done.
I think there's definitely parts of the film that many people could pick apart as saying it could be self-indulgent.
Sure.
But let's talk more about some of the technicalities of the film, acting-wise. You have Brad Pitt and you have Sean Penn. We haven't even really mentioned the actors, which I think is kind of a credit to itself, that this is not a film that depends on the actors as much as you might think. It's a lot more of the camera, the mood, the music, the visuals.
It's a lot of style. And so other things kind of fall to the back.
But obviously the actors have an important role here. Brad Pitt, even though Brad Pitt and Sean Penn are both getting billing for this film, this is Brad Pitt's film, in my thinking. It's you're going to argue with me on that. You probably think it's the mother's film, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's more Jessica Chastain's. But, I mean, Brad Pitt, I'm not a huge fan, but I like him okay. And I think this is some of his better work.
Yeah, I liked him a lot in this. Yeah. I thought he pulled it off. He has to play the father at couple stages of life. We spend most of the time with him when the kids are young.
Right.
And then we see a little bit with him when the kids are older.
Right.
Sean Penn plays the oldest son grown up, but his role is very minimal. Yeah. Actually, hardly any dialogue at all.
I'm not sure if he speaks.
I think he mumbles a lot. Okay. Well, I think there's a lot of mumbling on the telephone or in a meeting, but he really is just kind of stumbling through his role, which, but it works. It's a small role, but it's an important one.
He does agonize very well.
Yes, Sean Penn does agonizing, and he gets to agonize in this film quite a bit as well. So what about the style of it, from camera work and the visuals?
I really liked the style of the movie. And it's very, for those familiar with Terrence Malick's work, it's a very Terrence Malick film. You know,
right.
The style being nonlinear and the shots being very, very pretty, like using a lot of natural light and shot a lot outside. You know, he really likes doing that kind of stuff with like Days of Heaven and Thin Red Line and The New World. You know, he really likes doing that kind of stuff. And I will say that of his movies that I'm really familiar with, which would just be New World and Thin Red Line, I think this is his most accessible film. And as far as like the style he uses of going all over the place, like jump cutting and everything, I think that works the best with this film because for me, it's all about memories. Mm-hmm. And you know, memories are very disjointed and sometimes they don't make any sense. And so for me, like his kind of depicting memories and dreams, it's like one of the best movies about that kind of subject matter for me and like childhood and all that kind of stuff. So I really, really liked the style. I thought it worked well.
I thought it was the most beautiful film I've ever seen. I mean, I'm always amazed when you think about the number of shots in a film like this. I mean, this is a 2 hour and 20-minute film,
right.
And there are not long, lingering shots anywhere in this film. They are short. They are haphazard at times. They are pieced together in ways that you wouldn't normally think to piece them together. But every single shot is a postcard. Every single shot is an image that you would want to have framed on your wall. I mean, It's just every shot, and that just amazes me to think how much time, energy is put into a filmmaking process when you've got that much attention being paid to every single shot you make.
And not only, I agree. And then the thing that kept hitting me, which I usually don't think about in movies, was I can't imagine the location scouting for this movie because it takes place in so many different little areas. And like, you know, they have a scene at a pool and it's like this perfect pool and it's very cinematic. So everything is it's very cinematic. And so, and all these different locations. And I kept thinking, oh, this is so beautiful. How much time did it take for them to find the perfect factory for the dad to walk in and have it be this certain way?
The factory
or,
was
you know, the
neat
pool
looking.
or, you know, just their house and their neighborhood or just the different places. I was just like, that's just, I can't imagine the time. So it just impressed me.
Well, and let me mention the kids too, because we do have 3 kids in this film, primarily 3 brothers, with Jack being the oldest one, the one that eventually becomes the Sean Penn character,
right.
Played by Hunter McCracken, which I'm not familiar with anything else he's ever done as a child actor, but wow, he was intense.
Yes.
He knew how to play the role. He is a kid going through adolescence, going through a lot of anguish in his own head. Typical adolescence, but then he's also got these polarizing parents that he has to kind of battle between who he feels like he connects more with or who he wants to be connecting more with.
Right.
You've got the father that's, in my mind anyway, I see him as more of the, he's a member of the commercial world. He's the material world. He looks at strength. He looks at honor. He looks at, regiment, where you've got the mother who's very much nature and nurturing and caring. And you just see this kid torn between those two sides the whole way through the film. And it's fascinating to watch.
Right.
He doesn't have a horrible home life. Okay. It's not horrible. I mean, people could argue that there are home lives much, much, much more traumatic than what he has.
Right.
But the fact that he is going through adolescence, going into his preteen years, and he is wrestling with these emotions, and he does have a father and mother that do argue, and a father that can be overbearing and oppressive. You just see him wrestling with all that, and it makes you realize that kids have a lot going through their heads, and no matter how well grounded their families are, it's a lot going on. And I think this film did a great job of reminding us that and showing us the inside workings of a mind of an adolescent kid. And what they're going through. So I really thought he pulled it off. I thought his inner monologue was well done. I just saw his facial expressions, which there are a lot of those he has to wrestle with. They hit him on the mark. I mean, they really worked. Yeah.
Yeah, all the performances I thought were really believable. And, to have 3 kids that young. And, if anything, it's like, to me, it is the oldest kid. It's Jack, that kid's movie, and it's the mom's movie. I mean, Brad Pitt was there, but... he doesn't have much of an arc or much, it's
true. But I think there's a lot more to Brad Pitt's character than that we're left to want to dig into.
True.
I'm very curious. I'm left being curious about his background, his upbringing. He is a hard man. He is a man that wants to teach his kids to fight and don't let anybody push you around. And you've got to go out and grab what you want in life. And he designs things, has patents. He wants to fight for those patents in court. He is envious of people around him that have money, but at the same time, he's a musician and he really enjoys classical music.
He speaks about how he gave that up.
Yeah.
Or he left, yeah.
But I also wonder how much of the classical music it's more of a mechanical thing for him. It's more of I follow music a certain way and I practice music a certain way and my kids have to turn the pages in a certain manner. It's still a very mechanical process for him. And I thought he was just a fascinating character.
Sure.
The mother I understood her the whole way through. The father was the one I came out wondering, wow, I'd love to character study this guy a little bit more and find out what's going on in his head and where he came from and what may have caused him to get to this point in his life.
Right.
So anyway, Terrence Malick in general, I'm not terribly familiar with a lot of his films. I mean, I've seen Badlands, I've seen Thin Red Line. It's been a while for both of those. And this has caused me to want to go back and revisit some of his films again, get a little more comfortable with them. You were saying as far as what you saw with other films of his, you think this is probably the most accessible to a degree.
Yeah, I guess you should say
I was going to say that maybe let's put the quotes around that accessible. But, but the style you said fit as far as it being that dreamlike feel.
Right. I mean, I think, as long as which I think is why the 12-year-old boy last night couldn't really relate to it. He's still in his childhood, really.
Right.
So for him to be able to relate to this, he can't really. You need to be 20, 30, 40. You need to be older so that you can relate on flashing back to your childhood. And I think that's why this is his most accessible because, not everybody went to Vietnam and could do Thin Red Line. So not everybody can relate to that. The New World, not everybody can relate to Pocahontas and John Smith, that kind of history. But childhood, everybody can kind of say, oh, yeah, that kind of rings, even though I didn't grow up in the 50s, but I can relate to
But you had a sibling. You knew some of that sibling side of things.
And finding out when you find out, oh, my dad's not perfect. And actually right now, I kind of hate my dad because he's making me angry. And you can relate to those things. And you can relate to being jealous of other siblings, which happens in the movie because Jack's younger brother is artistic and happens to be able to paint and can also play guitar. So therefore, the mother admires the kind of artistic touch and the father admires the fact that he can play guitar. And you can see that makes Jack jealous and kind of angry. He doesn't really know how to feel about that. And so, those are things that everyone...
They're universal themes that anybody can latch onto. Exactly. I'm with you on that. So
I think, I think this is his best movie, and it's his most accessible movie, I think, but it also requires patience. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not going to give you everything on a platter, but I really feel that it's not... I don't think it's arrogant or self-indulgent because I guess it works for me, and that's why I don't think that.
Right.
And then knowing his other films, it's like you kind of know what you're getting into, and so I think it's just a typical Terrence Malick, which is a good thing.
Sure.
So.
Well, I will say this for anybody wanting to check it out. I really enjoyed the movie. It's a better movie on hindsight than maybe when you're trying to wrestle with it while you're watching it. It's one of those that the more you reflect on it and you think about it, I think you appreciate it more. Right. I will say to anybody who hasn't seen it that does go out to see it, just go in and don't spend time trying to figure out exactly what's happening.
Right.
I think if you do that, you're going to burn yourself out pretty quick. Just go in and open your mind and let the experience kind of take over and then let your brain process it afterwards. There's still a lot of parts of the film I don't get. There's a lot of scenes I don't understand. There's a lot of images that don't work for me. But that's kind of the cool thing now is I'm left to kind of think about it and wonder what might have been the intent of those now. And that's a good thing. It keeps the brain active. We're still processing it, the next morning.
In a way, if someone, it's kind of strange to say this, but if somebody's seen the movie and didn't like it, it's one of the rare instances where I think you really need to give it a second chance. If somebody usually doesn't like a movie, I'm like, oh, I understand that you didn't. But if you didn't like this movie, watch it again and give it a second chance because I think now that you kind of know what's happening, you're not going to get certain developments that aren't going to. You'll actually appreciate it more because you'll be able to kind of relax, be like, oh, I didn't like it, and then you'll be able to appreciate it more, if that makes sense. So it's really, I think it's a second viewing movie. I mean, I haven't seen it a second time, but I can only imagine I'm going to like it more, Well,
I will say, just to kind of wrap up our conversation here, we had our screening last night. We had a very big crowd, which I was very proud of. I think just the artistic community really came out, or people that want to help support an artistic endeavor came out to support this film. I saw hardly anybody leave. I think maybe two people leave about midway through, and that was about it. Whether or not everybody else was staying there out of peer pressure because they didn't want to be the first ones to leave. But I also love the fact that a lot of them afterwards had very divisive opinions. We had some people that just didn't get it. I mean, we had other people who were crying emotionally
Right.
Because of the impact the film had. So it is going to be a divisive film. And I think that's part of the good thing about some of these films is you want to talk about it afterwards. I think the film would fail if you walked out there and kind of shrugged your shoulders and said, whatever, and just kind of moved on. Then the film fails. And I've sat through a number of films where you just shrug your shoulders and move on. This is one you can't shrug your shoulders at. Whether you hate it or love it, you've got something to think about with it afterwards.
Yeah, it makes you think about it. Whether you hate it or love it, it makes you think. And that's a sign of a great film.
Sure, absolutely. So The Tree of Life, it's out there playing in only select theaters. It has not gone wide. It probably will not go wide release. And I'm sure it'll be on DVD probably in 4 to 5 months available as well. Could be an interesting rewatching experience on that as well. So great. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll do some news and our movie recommendations.
We'll get back to your show in a moment. Just a reminder, you're listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Find out more at themesh.tv and give us feedback on what you like. And now, as promised, back to your show.
Okay, we're back with Footcandle Films with Chris and Alan, and we want to hit a couple movie news items. This is kind of a fun part of the show where we get to try to throw out some news items that maybe I think maybe Chris is not aware of, and see if I can catch him off guard a little bit, see if I can get a reaction. Some news that I think may be of interest or something we want to talk about. So let's get into the first one. I think you may have a personal opinion on this one.
Okay.
Stephen King.
Okay.
Stephen King is working on a new book.
Oh, okay.
That has already been signed on to be adapted into a film pretty shortly after the book comes out.
Wow.
Jonathan Demme is going to be directing his next book as a film. And the book is called 11/22/63, November 22nd, 1963, JFK. It's about the JFK assassination.
Whoa.
But it's a time travel story from what I understand. Supposedly a high school teacher is given the ability to go back in time and thwart the JFK assassination. So, interesting. It's supposed to be a very big book, very large book, as most of Stephen King's recent books have been. But I just think the interesting thing from a film standpoint is that Jonathan Demme has already signed on to write, produce, and direct it.
Yeah, that's
with that.
Interesting.
With King serving as executive producer. So this book comes out, I'm trying to look at I couldn't find it, fall of... I think it comes out later this year, but they're going to start shooting next fall, 2012. So it's going to come out...
Probably come out right around Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. Probably so. So so with this, I just want to toss it over to you about Stephen King films in general. I know you're an avid reader. I would imagine you've read your share of Stephen King novels over the years.
Yeah.
What's your take, or what have been some of your favorite Stephen King adaptation films in recent history?
Stand By Me, and that's not recent history, unfortunately.
Sure.
Shawshank Redemption, that's not recent. But those are probably my two favorite. I don't think and then Shining way back.
Right. But can you really consider that?
Stephen King disowns that.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if you can consider that a true adaptation. It's more of an inspired by type of thing in a way. So yeah.
True.
Right.
Very true. But awesome movie. A lot of times Stephen King's books do not translate well into movies. Like, I didn't think Pet Sematary was that great. Dream Catchers or something like that. So they just for some reason don't translate. The miniseries stuff that they've done, I think sometimes does, but still his stuff is so far out there that a lot of times when you see it, when you read it on the page, it seems more understandable or whatever. But then when you see it, you're like, that's just stupid. When you see it visualized, it just comes across dumb.
Well, and I think King's work is much denser than what the movies will allow it to get into.
I mean,
you're trying to, maybe that's why the miniseries approach works better, because you have a little more flexibility. You have a little more time to dig into it. Trying to cram it into a 90, 120 minute movie, I just don't think works all the time.
True.
To me, it worked better. I think Misery was a good film because that was a very simple concept. It didn't take going in so deep to understand that, and you can appreciate that as a shorter film.
And I think some of his stuff, he deals a lot with the supernatural and stuff, and some of that portrayed in movies just looks stupid or silly.
Right.
But like Misery, that wasn't supernatural. It's just a really mean woman taking a guy hostage. So that works better as a film because it's more believable and it doesn't stretch the imagination that much. Mm-hmm. With the movie that you've mentioned, the book and the movie, he does time periods really well. Like Stand By Me, you get that feeling of growing up in the 50s or whenever that was. I think he could probably pull off the JFK idea, Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if it's going to be... You say his whole point in going back is to try to stop the assassination?
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. I got you thinking now, don't I? So
yeah,
interested.
And he would be able to handle kind of like the Ray Bradbury thing. If you go back in time and stop that, what then happens because
ramifications
of that?
maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And he
could be.
It could be really good. Still surprising, considering how, even his later books, I think, are kind of hit and miss, how it got signed on for a film before the book's even released.
Well, what I love, and I know this is an audio podcast, you can't see the cover of the book here, but the cover of the book is Stephen King, the title of with the date, and at the front cover is the news article about JFK slain in Dallas. LBJ takes the oath. You flip it over to the backside. The backside is JFK escapes assassination. First Lady also okay. Wow. And Americans breathe a sigh of relief. So basically, we see maybe the ramifications of that happening.
So a lot of it's probably dealing with what happens after. Yeah,
could be.
Yeah, because to me, the interesting part would be the ramifications as opposed to all
some
the
action
having to
type
do all
movie,
this stuff to stop it happening. That wouldn't be really that interesting.
Well, and Jonathan Demme, I'll say Silence of the Lambs, one of my absolute favorite films of all time. There hasn't been a whole lot he's done otherwise that I've been a huge fan of.
What has he done? I mean, I know he's done.
He did Philadelphia.
That's right.
He's done some other movies recently that just I just
been there.
don't hear much about.
Gotcha.
But Silence of the Lambs is still just a great cornerstone film for me. So I'm excited to see what could happen with this. I think when Stephen King adaptations happen really well, they're good films. And if they're in the hands of good directors, it's normally a good thing. So I feel like we might have a good opportunity for a good film here. All right, second news item. And then I'm tying off the Brad Pitt connection from Tree of Life.
Okay.
A film will be coming out later this year. It's called Moneyball. I don't know how familiar you are with that. I know you're not a huge sports guy.
Is that about baseball?
It is about baseball. It's about it's a story. It's a real life story. Billy Beane with the Oakland A's. He came in to serve as manager of the Oakland A's, and he brought with him, through a connection he made with a younger kind of a statistician research guy, the idea of incorporating more statistics and more of a method to recruiting players and building a team instead of just whoever's got the best home run average or anything like that. It's a calculation. It's creating a team off of more calculation. What I think is interesting with this is at one point Steven Soderbergh was assigned to this, and I thought that was going to be one of his films. He's not associated with it, as far as I can tell. He may be executive producer or something. Sure. I don't know. But it is Brad Pitt, Robin Wright, and Jonah Hill. So interesting film written by Aaron Sorkin. Okay. That's where my interest starts to jump up a little bit because I loved his work in The Social Network, his screenplay for that film. He is doing the writing and screenplay for this. Well, it's based off a book, but he's adapting it as a screenplay for the film.
And like you say, I mean, I'm not a huge baseball fan, but if anybody can make that exciting to me, Aaron Sorkin can. Yeah. I mean, he made typing on a computer exciting for The Social Network.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, that sounds interesting.
All right, and real quick, you kind of already alluded to this, but Brad Pitt as an actor, tell me what's been your favorite Brad Pitt performance outside of The Tree of Life?
Probably Fight Club.
Yeah.
But then again, I don't know how much of that is his performance and how much it's just kind of a fun movie for him to be in. So he's just kind of like chewing up scenery. And so, but I mean, that's a Brad Pitt movie that I liked. I don't think he's a bad actor. I just don't know.
I like him. I think he's a fairly one-note performance in that he still plays Brad Pitt most of the time. I don't see a whole lot outside of that. Tree of Life stepped a little outside of his normal comfort zone, which was why I think I liked his performance so much in it. So 12 Monkeys, not a big fan of his performance in that, or?
Wow, I need to go back and watch. I like the movie.
Because that was one of the few times he really got to play just something different. You know?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, I have to go back and check on it. I mean, not a bad performance.
I like Brad Pitt as an actor. I do. I think he's good, but he's like a Tom Cruise and some of these other characters to me. It's like if you put him in the right role with the right needs, he's perfect. You try to step him outside of that, and I just don't think the comfort's there. Yeah. All right, third and final news item on this. This is more of a theoretical question about films in general, but it does stem off of something in the recent news.
Okay.
So this whole Rise of the Planet of the Apes is out right now and doing pretty well, getting some good reviews and all. But everybody's talking about the lead performance, which is basically the ape, which is a motion capture performance by Andy Serkis.
Okay.
Andy Serkis is, known as Gollum from the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah.
He's done some other...
He did King Kong, too, didn't he?
He did King Kong for Peter Jackson just a few years ago. Basically, you strap him in with all these little microbes and dots and sensors on him, and he acts out the performances, but it translates into a CGI character. Should that be Oscar worthy in the future? What are your personal thoughts? Do you think that's something that, that kind of performance ought to be recognized? Because there's actually been a little bit of rumbling that, the guy really knocks this out of the park, this performance, but yet
really good at
because he's not on screen and it's not his face, he wouldn't get a nomination for anything acting-wise.
I don't know enough. I mean, I haven't watched enough behind-the-scenes making of on DVDs to see I guess if you saw footage of him walking around in his underwear with all these dots attached to him, doing all this crazy movements and stuff, then I would have more of an appreciation. I guess a lot of times I just assume he's not putting that much work into it. But
right.
I guess maybe he, I can't is it he goes in and does a couple of moves and that's it? Or does he literally have to act out?
So you think it's maybe more of a public knowledge about what's involved in a motion capture performance that would have to escalate it?
Right. And I hear what you're saying. I guess I'm kind of if he literally minute for minute, he has to act out physically everything, then why not? If he's that much of a lead character, I mean, I guess he doesn't speak, or maybe he does. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie yet. But a lot of times it seems like if somebody doesn't speak, it's going to be hard to give them an acting thing because people think acting is also having to give dialogue and stuff.
Yeah,
But then you would say, okay. So you wouldn't nominate Tim Allen for Toy Story 3 or Tom Hanks, but all they're doing is giving a voice, but they do a lot of character acting with the voice, but they don't have to do motion capture with the body. So I don't know.
Because of the way films are moving digitally, I'm actually anticipating that at some point in the future, there are going to be categories for live action acting and voice or motion capture acting. That's kind of my gut feeling because I do think it's going to be tough to mix the two. But yet, I do think that some of these performances are going to need to be recognized. I mean, they are acting. They are working just as hard as an actor on screen would. Actually, probably harder because they're having to react to something that they're not physically seeing at the moment. They're actually having to be told there's something beside of you and there's this happening and this is happening. You've got to react to it. And if they can pull off a really good performance doing that and get us to forget that there's a human being actually controlling that CGI character, I think that's an outstanding performance, and I think it ought to be recognized. So I'd be curious to see where they go with that. But I was kind of curious. I wanted to kind of pick your brain on that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so news items. I'm done. I got a lot more news I could rattle through, but we said we'd do 3, so I'm going to stop at 3. And we're going to get on to our film recommendations. This is where we like to each of us give a film that can be an old, new film, can be anything goes, but something that we just feel like people ought to check out or could have some interest in. And Chris, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I don't care.
I'll go first.
All right. Go ahead and fire it away.
So, our movie this week was Tree of Life. This dense, complex movie.
Are you going to recommend another film about inanimate objects coming alive and killing people?
No. I'm going to go back to a much simpler time.
Okay, good.
1983. And it will be National Lampoon's Vacation.
This summer, when you think vacation, think National Lampoon's Vacation. See the real America.
Hey, underpants. Hey, yellow.
What? It's friendly.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
Don't you want to look at the Grand Canyon?
It's educational.
Great.
And most of all, it's fun.
The dog went on the picnic basket.
Wow. Really? Yeah, you really have gone... Are you trying to tie the whole family dynamics thing in the Tree of Life a little bit?
Well, it could be. It's summertime, and comedies come out every summer. We had Hangover 2 and Bridesmaids and things like that. But I was thinking, what it was I'd heard a clip of the song Holiday Rolls. I was like, wow, I hadn't thought of vacation in so long. And I started thinking about it. And that movie, for me, for so long in my childhood, even though at the time when it came out, I wasn't old enough to see it, but it just really epitomized like summer and fun. And it was back when I thought Chevy Chase was really funny.
And he was really funny.
So he was really funny.
Yeah.
And it was written by John Hughes, who did
Yep.
like 16 Count. It had a lot of really good elements to it. And I don't hear people, they talk about Animal House, they talk about Caddyshack. And it's just like, I don't feel like the original Vacation gets enough love.
Wow,
So I think people
okay.
should go back and check it out and just, see how funny it still is.
Don't eat the family truckster, Russ. So,
Exactly.
I have way too many quotes from that
Yeah,
movie.
exactly.
I like to rattle off, so.
It gets quoted, but I don't know. I guess I'd forgotten about it and I revisited it. So I think people should revisit that one. So hopefully
Hey, very
people
cool.
out there listening to this have seen it. If you haven't, you definitely need to see it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, well, I've got a film for you.
आपने कहा था ना सर कि अपने बाप से सीख के आओ मैं अपने पापा से सीख के आया सर
Let me just kind of give you some of the facts about this film before I jump too deep into it.
okay.
It's from India.
Okay.
So it is part of the Bollywood movement, you could say, to some degree.
Okay. A true Bollywood thing, not like Slumdog Millionaire.
Right. No, it was actually made there, produced
Gotcha.
there, everything, not just on location in India.
Gotcha.
It's 3 hours long.
Wow.
So actually, last night, Chris, me coming home from Tree of Life, I had to finish watching this film because I've had to watch it in 3 stages
I was about to
because
say,
it
you're
is
you're not a long movie person.
long. I'm watching them in hour increments, basically.
Wow.
The film's name is Krish.
Okay.
Krish.
I think I've heard of this
You've
one.
heard of this, okay.
I've seen scenes from it.
All
A
right.
little quick
It
scenes.
is a Indian superhero film that incorporates breakout song and dance numbers,
Awesome.
a very deep romance story. It takes place in India and it takes place in Singapore.
Okay.
Very sprawling, a lot of visual effects. Actually, for a production that you would consider out of India, it's a lot more special effects than I anticipated or thought would be possible.
Huh.
It is one of the highest grossing films in India based on that. It is a sequel, which I've never seen the original, sequel to an original film about a man who develops special powers and mental abilities. That film came out, I don't know the year on that, but this is a 2006 film where we follow his son, who basically starts to develop the same path.
Okay.
I loved it, even though it's extremely campy. It is extremely cheesy. I see a lot of people rolling their eyes probably as they watch it.
How does that hold up for 3 hours? Cheesy.
Seems like broken up in parts, it does okay. I don't know if I could sit down in all one setting, but it is a good mixture of humor. Like I said, the song and dance numbers, where as soon as they go to a circus, I'm like, okay, yeah, a song and dance numbers are going to break out right
This
now.
is
You
gonna
just
happen.
know this is going to happen.
Sure.
They're having a nice romantic walk down the pier. Okay, yes, song and dance are going to break out. Sure enough, they do. It's just these things happen, and it's fun. It's fine. It is a superhero film. The guy's got superpowers. He can like run up trees and he can like scale up mountains, and it's a fun film. I can see a lot of American audiences finding it very cliche and finding it very because I think we're just inundated with these action films and all that. But if you can kind of set that apart and just enjoy it for what it is a very fun film. My kids have actually got to watch it with me because
yeah?
there's nothing provocative
not like
about
R or
it.
PG
No,
like that.
not at all. It's actually probably just PG.
Huh.
Very simple film, very good natured film. It was a lot of fun. A lot of hammy performances in it, a lot of winking and smiling at the camera and all that. But it was a fun movie. I encourage you. It's on Netflix, not on streaming. You got to get it on the DVD. But it's worth checking out if you want to see something a little different, see something from another culture where they're making their mainstream films and what they've pulled from American audiences and what we're pulling from them. And, it's interesting. So anyway, we've got National Lampoon's Vacation and we've got Krish as our recommendations. And we covered our news. And, of course, The Tree of Life is out in some theaters right now that people can check out. So I think we're done. I think we've knocked out another successful episode here. Just as a reminder to everybody with this that, you're listening to themesh.tv, the Mesh Network. This is our network of shows and podcasts, which we're very happy to be on as Footcandle Films. So you can always check out all of the new episodes at themesh.tv. You can learn more about the Film Society that we host at www.footcandle.org for the Footcandle Film Society. Find out what films are screening in the area and then what we're going to be reviewing in future podcasts as well. And if anybody has any questions, ideas, thoughts, or suggestions for us on future film recommendations, feel free to send them in to us as well. They can send them in to info@footcandle.org. We'll get them and respond to them and just appreciate all the feedback that we get. So for Footcandle Films, I'm Alan Jackson signing off.
Chris Frye signing off.
All right, great. Thanks. And we'll see you next month.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Footcandle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.